Hello everyone and welcome to Devils United. This is the mid-season review for Manchester United. Hello everyone and welcome back to Devils United. Today with me I've got Brush and I've got Reece. How are we both?
Not too bad, Maisy. And yourself?
I'm very well, thank you very much. I can see there's already a few people in the comments. Just want to say hello there to Santiago. Just want to say hello there to Niall and to Chris from Leicester Till I Die. So yes, Man United mid-season review. Brush, how would you say the first half of our season's gone so far?
Where do we start, Maze? Should we start with the positives?
Is there any positives?
The first 2 game weeks. And even then, if you looked at it too closely, then you would have seen some of the flaws that were to come. Yeah, it's been a torrid time, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely has. It's been a very bad start of the season. Reece, how would you define our season so far?
Chaotic.
That's one word to definitely describe our season, that's for sure. There's been a lot of different things happening at the club, so many different rumours going about. We've had a manager being sacked, a brand new interim manager coming in, and nothing has really changed whatsoever in terms of the club. Just as Brush has said, we had 2 good games at the start of the season. Leeds, where we scored the 6 goals, Newcastle, where we scored the 4 goals. But after that, it just seemed to go bad all over again. It just felt like we had no control in us whatsoever, and it's just been an absolute crazy year. I want to start off with the start before Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did get sacked. I'll go with you, Reece. How do you think it went in terms? What do you think caused the games to go sour before Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got sacked?
I think it was just the complacency in the team. Like, it seems to be one week it's Ronaldo's to blame, the next week it's poor form by the players not taking chances, finishing or adapting. It's and then constant team changes, lack of style, lack of failing to dominate games. There were so many things that contributed to Solskjaer getting the sack, and in the end, rightfully so. And it's consistent on Twitter, like in social media, like no matter what platform you use, that people are begging for Solskjaer to come back. I've always been under the preference of you don't go back to the X. It's never a good thing. Like, you skip the X, you move on. As even if it had good moments, it ended for a reason. There's no better option than moving on. Like, if you go back, it'll just make it worse. But it just says, it doesn't really matter who's in charge. Like, there's a deep root issue at the club, and it doesn't matter if it's an interim manager or the permanent manager in the summer. There's a deep rooted problem at the club that is going to take a lot of time and effort to deal with. The good thing is that we've got at the moment, the manager is also going to be here for a consultant role, and he is I've said on a show before, and I've said it on Twitter before, and I'm going to say it on here, is Ralph Rangnick is judge, jury, executioner. Like, Ralph Rangnick will literally decide your future. As a consultant, he will be linking in directly with Myrtle and Fletcher and the two director and technical football roles. He's effectively going to decide who's getting the stay and who's getting sold. And that's actually going to contribute to where we go going forward under the new manager as well. So that says it all for me, that it purely comes down to who actually has the grip to stay and who doesn't belong here. United really need to start working on that, and it's not just in the playing staff, it's also in the management roles as well. There's clearly some people here that doesn't have a mentality to win. It's just a mentality to aspire to win. And when I say aspire to win, it's like, oh, we can get top 4 and then build up, but that's not aspiring to win. That's just settling for one position and hoping for the best. That's not what this club's about. This club is about winning trophies and playing exciting football and playing young, exciting players as well. And long past his grave, like Sir Matt Busby would be turning his grave right now, where we are. Like, that's a fact. He would be turning his grave because this is not the Man United that he built.
Question for you, Brush. Do you think it was the right call for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to be sacked when he did? Do you think he should have stayed till at least the end of the season, or do you think he should have been sacked a bit before when he did get sacked?
In all honesty, I think after the Villarreal UEFA Cup final, questions should have been asked. And, had the changes come then, you would have had the entire summer to actually plan something out properly instead of the mess that we found ourselves in. I know he went on that amazing run as interim, but even the fact that we gave him the job on a permanent basis showed a lack of planning to some degree. And like Reece touched on, a lot of the issues that we have are deep rooted. I think for real change to happen, it has to come from the top down. With Ralph as well in this interim position, what I was most excited about, more so than these next couple of months as him as manager, was what he was going to do behind the scenes. But if I'm, hand on my heart, I don't have the confidence that these guys will give him that platform. Because obviously, when he came in, I was hoping that he would kind of take over from Ed, but we know Ed's stepping down, but Richard Arnold's gone into that role as executive. John Murtough isn't going anywhere. The fact that as a director of football, he's actually put his hand out and, asked for Ralph's help is also somewhat concerning if we really get into it, because a director of football should know what he's doing. So that shows a level of incompetence. And if that's the case, then why not hire Ralph as the director of football? This consultancy role really worries me. We need clarity on exactly what he's going to be doing. It just seems like it's the blind leading the blind. And we're just all sat around hoping that they do the right things, but not knowing. And, if we feel that way, imagine how the players are feeling. They don't know if they're coming or going, what's happening. So, that's why we find ourselves in this situation.
Yep.
Definitely. I completely agree. There's a few more people in the chat who I just want to say hello to. My Queen in the chat, RJ who's in the chat, Stephen who's in the chat as well, and there was also Ashley in the chat. Thank you all for tuning in so far. With me with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I know a lot of people did mention that he should have been sacked in the summer. With me, I still thought, well, we got to second place. We've got to a Europa League final. So, yes, let's just see how it gets on for this season. If we've been improving every single year under Ole, we could potentially get a bit more further when it came to the crunch. So I was hoping this season it would have been a much better season, knowing the signings we have got with Varane, with Ronaldo, with Jadon Sancho. Getting them three in particular signings. I'm not saying Ronaldo was that one who you particularly needed, but he was a signing what the fans would have loved to have. And then we had Varane, who was desperately needed in that centre-back. We had Jadon Sancho, who was also needed there in the right-wing player. To be honest, for me, that's why I wanted to give him that little bit of a chance. But when the players weren't performing there, it just felt like he needed to step down at this point. And I was a bit ashamed with how some of our fans were behaving about how we wanted him out, the way they was giving him the death threats, the way they was saying, I hope your plane crashes when he went to Norway, things like that. You should be behaving as a fan base. It's your manager at the end of the day if you want him there or not.
Pay attention to things like that, Maisy. I think people just talk absolute nonsense, and there's no place for stuff like that.
The sad reality is that comment, plane crashes, that's actually the comment that drove Solskjaer off social media.
It's horrible because you saw the picture as well of him and his kids walking to the plane, and
Yeah, that comment.
What kind of individual sits around saying stuff like that?
Yeah, that comment actually drove him off Twitter. He used to be active on Twitter like a couple of years ago or something like that, and it just got intense and like you don't like. It doesn't matter who the manager is to me. I honestly don't care who the manager is, but the one thing I do care about is showing intent to actually go on and win and take the club forward. And I'm not going to dispute Solskjaer as a bad person, but as a manager, he was consistently not learning from his mistakes. But the one good thing he did have is he had good man management skills. There was a feel-good factor there, but that isn't always the case. You can have good man management skills, but if you consistently fail to learn from your mistakes, you're not going to stay in your job. It doesn't matter like how great you are. You could be the Sir Alex Ferguson of man management skills, or you could have the tactics of Arsene Wenger in the 90s, but that means nothing if you fail to repeat. If you fail to repeat or you fail to learn, like you're doomed for the beginning.
What really surprised me as well was that, everyone could see what he lacked in. So then why not address some of those needs? I was very surprised he didn't bring in more experience into that backroom stuff. I'm sure Ollie must have known himself that tactically he wasn't the best. Why not bring in a tactician? When we had Fergie, Fergie always kept it different in the backroom. He went and got the Carlos Queiroses of the world, who were a bit more hands-on and who did help out. So that was disappointing. And initially in the summer, I'll tell you what, I thought he was going into the last year of his initial contract anyway. And I would just like to have seen that run its course and then see what happens in May. And then we would have been in a better position to make a decision on if we should extend or not. And I don't think there was a worry of him being snatched up by anyone. So, I thought handing him that new contract was premature.
My biggest concern is why his first, I understand he wanted Sancho, because obviously we need the right winger. At the moment, he hasn't lived up to expectation yet. That's not through his fault. It's just he's still adapting to the Premier League, although he does really need to adapt fairly soon. Otherwise, he's going to end up losing opportunities, which isn't fair, but it's normal. Varane made sense because we need a stable partner at the back with Maguire, but his very first signing this summer should have been a midfielder, not a winger, not a centre back. It should have been a midfielder, because that's where our problems persist. We have a midfield that is Championship at best, with an elite European style attack, decent back four, good goalkeepers, but our midfield in that base area, just to link it between the the forward players and the defence, it's so bang average. Should have got a midfielder in there, and it says all why problems persisted. We don't control games, and you can't control. Defence win you titles, goals win you games, but a midfield wins it regardless. The midfield is where the game comes from. That's
where you dominate possession.
Exactly.
That's where you progress the ball to your attackers so they can go and do what they do.
Absolutely. You need that strong base. That's why, if you want to beat Pep Guardiola, you need to have you need to have a midfield better than his. If you want to beat Real Madrid in La Liga, you need to be able to dominate their midfield. Our midfield couldn't even dominate, our midfield couldn't even dominate Watford. Couldn't even our midfield all season's only dominated, 2 teams? I think the only teams we've dominated was Spurs in that 3-0 win and Leeds right at the start of the season.
And even that Spurs one, they were under a terrible spell
Exactly.
with Nuno in charge. So, they were on their way down.
Yeah. Other than that,
there was a comment here what I wanted to raise with Ashley. We need to remember that these players have played under Ole, Carrick and Rangnick, so can't blame the players for struggling to Rangnick's playing style. What do you say about that, Reece?
They have played under 3 separate managers. I think I look at Ole, it was trying to dominate games, failed to do it because they just didn't. It was more about the individual brilliance, but now you actually look at it, it's it's not exactly a bad thing, but you can't always rely on individuals to win. Individuals don't win you trophies. But they can decide games for you, but individuals don't win trophies. Carrick at least got them defensively stable, but in terms of not blaming the players for Rangnick's style, I kind of do, because this is a manager who wants them to play a very aggressive style of football, like a style that's all about pressing from the front, quick transitions, playing the ball more effectively, winning the ball back quickly as well. It's all about creating chances, and they aren't doing that. They should be willing to work, and I don't see it. This is a manager who is very experienced since 1981. This is a manager who's had a style that's transformed German football, now the European game. It's came to the Premier League. And yet these players aren't willing to learn it. And it just shows their mentality. It just shows their mentality for me. So I do blame the players. I do blame them.
I agree. What about you, Brush? Do you think this formation, because people have been talking about this formation, do you think this suits Manchester United, or do you think it is probably player mentality as well?
I think it's a bit of both, Maisy. I think it comes down to square pegs in round holes. For the best part of the last 3 years, this team has been set up to counter-attack, and it's a big shock for a lot of these players now with the demands and what they're being asked to do. We saw it against Crystal Palace for about half an hour, where they actually pressed and, properly followed instruction on what Ralph expected of them. And I think we saw in the last game, he reverted back. So even he has given up on his system with this current group of players, and that's quite telling.
For me.
Against Villa as well, we looked like the away team, which was really worrying. At home, and they're not even a possession-based team, and we gave up possession to Villa. So I worry about the game at the weekend over at their ground.
I completely agree, because when I look at that game, the first 20 minutes, we was brilliant. And then our passing was so sloppy. He was giving too many chances away. We wasn't putting our chances away enough. They could have easily have been 3-1 up at half time if, for example, there wasn't that, if it wasn't for De Gea. They had 2 disallowed goals. VAR helped him out a lot as well. So you do look at that and you do think, we got extremely, extremely lucky. Ashley has a question for you, Reece. Reece, do you think we have the players to play Rangnick football?
Yeah, I do. I've been a fan of Rangnick's football for years, and he's always been able to get players to adapt to his style, and he always gives them the benefit of the doubt. And if they don't work out, he moves them on. I look at his style of play; it does work. The problem is there's just some of the dressing room is poisonous. I won't even use toxic to describe them anymore. I'm using the word poisonous. Bruno Fernandes, one of my favourite players at the club, he's becoming poison with his bitchy attitude. Ronaldo isn't poisonous, but Ronaldo's ego to aspire to win is effectively poisoning these players, because these players aren't actually aspiring to his standards to win. It's always becoming a discontent. And it just shows that these players are either still trying to get to that level or they don't know how to reach that level. And it also aspires from previous management where it's all about jobs for the boys and all that, bluffers in the team, constant comments have been reiterated to this team. Well, and then constant apologies on social media. I'm not here for your apologies. I'm not here for, oh, we're going to be here better next time. We're going to do better. We're going to win next time. We're going to show it. You said that every single week, and then you get battered left, right, and centre. What's next? Or we're going to win a trophy. Really? Well, go ahead and do it then. If you're here to win trophies, if you're here to take this club to the next level, fucking prove it on the pitch. Actually show your commitment. No disrespect to the teams and like no disrespect to like the guys in the chat, but like Arsenal fans, they haven't been where they are. They haven't won a league title in 17 years. I can imagine how they're feeling because they're the third biggest club in England. We're the biggest club in England. We're the biggest clubs in world football. We've won a trophy in 5 years. That's not acceptable. But it's going to be 5 years at the end of this year if we don't win the FA Cup, because the Champions League, I don't see us winning the Champions League unless a miracle happens. The FA Cup's our best chance to win something. We should be winning trophies. We should be competing. But we don't have that mentality anymore. It's like these players just don't give a shit. And it aspires from top down. We don't have a board that's won a trophy as well. Like this board hasn't won a league title. If you haven't got a board that knows how to win trophies, you're not going to win anything.
We also have a board and our owners who doesn't care what we do as long as we get top four. It's like, okay, aim for top four this season and that's all that matters. It's because they're getting that extra little bit of funding from the Champions League, and as long as we get top four and we got that extra little bit of funding, then that's all that matters. Doesn't matter if you don't win a cup. It doesn't matter if you don't win the league. Just get into the top four. And that shouldn't be the case. With Manchester United's history, what we have done as a club, what we built as a club, we should be aiming for the league every single season. We should be at least competing highly in the Champions League. We should be getting far in the Carabao Cup. We should be getting far into the FA Cup. With that squad we've got, this should be a title-winning team. But we're not a title-winning team because we've not got the mentality full stop. I'm going to go into a little bit more positivity. We're still in 2 cups. We're still in the Champions League, which last season we got knocked out of to the Europa League. We're in the FA Cup. We won against Aston Villa despite it being a scrappy win. We still got through. We're still into the FA Cup. Brush, how do you feel like we may potentially win a trophy this season?
It would be more in hope than anything. Judging by the way we played, I don't really have any faith. But yeah, I'm hoping for a solid cup run. The FA Cup, for a club of our size, I think we've criminally underachieved in that competition over the last 20 years. We should have a couple more. And I think with the FA Cup as well, I think some of the shine that got taken off it might have been due in part to us as well back in 2000 when they left the competition to go take part in that Club World Cup just to, get embarrassed totally by old man Romario.
There's a couple of questions here, so I just thought to get them addressed. We'll go with the first question here from Ashley. The thoughts on Eric Bailly might be going to AC Milan. I'll start with you, Brush. What do you think about that?
I can't believe it. Simply because of the situation we're in currently. I don't think we can afford to lose any centre-backs. So, especially when I heard it was a loan deal as well, it doesn't really make sense unless there's somebody coming in. I don't know if this happens, they're going to give more chances to Mengi. But
Mengi's
yeah.
now on loan, isn't it?
Is he gone now?
Birmingham.
Is he?
Yeah, he's actually at Birmingham now.
It.
So at the moment, because apparently Lindelof has got a knock, the only fit centre back we have at the moment is Varane, and we know that Varane is injury prone as well. So if they're gonna get rid of Eric Bailly on loan, we need to bring at least a loanee centre back in. If that is going to be
no
Paul
sense.
Torres,
at this moment in time. It doesn't make sense to get rid of any of our centre backs. If anything, we probably should be looking to get one in.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's why I think the club might get Zakaria. He's a midfielder that I adore because I watched the Bundesliga. He's a fantastic, tenacious defensive midfielder that can play centre back. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in. If the club actually decide to bring somebody in, bring him in, give him that period of time. It allows the other players to get back from injury or illness or whatever the hell's wrong with them. Slot them into midfield. It gives us that opportunity to finally play a midfielder that actually knows what they're doing. Although then again, if you comment on our midfield nowadays, it seems to be agenda driven. You can't have an unbiased opinion. Yawn.
Niall's got a question for both Brush and Reece. Question for Reece and Brush. What midfielder would you want in the January transfer window if the funds were there? We'll go with you first, Reece.
For me, there's three. They're all realistic options. They all improve our midfield straight away. They're actually suitable to this style of play and potentially to whoever is going to be down the line, whether it be Ten Hag or Pochettino. Like, they actually give you the driven, energetic, but also destroyer type mentality we need. So I would go top one's obviously Sakaria. I would still say Haidara, and the other one is Frank Kessie. One of those three in like midfield. One of those three would be my choice. It's cost effective. It's realistic signings, but it's also signings that improve the team right there and then. The problem is, I think either one of those signings is too ambitious for this football club right now, because our board doesn't have ambition to sign players of that quality. But it'd be one of those three, or if the club had ambition, two of them. You can get Sakaria, use him as a centre back, and then you can get like briefly, and then you can put him in midfield. You can get Haidara or Kessie in there as well. That's something. So for me, it says, it'd be one of those three, or if you could do it, two of those three.
What about you, Brush? What midfielder would you want?
Yeah, I agree with what Reece was saying. With regards to Frank Kessie, he is actually free to talk to right now because his contract is up in the summer.
Yes,
if we were a properly run club, we would make inquiries as to how much they would want. But I know Milan are in a title race, so it might be difficult. They might just think, we're just going to hold on to him and lose him for free, which is fine. But if the club was run properly, we'd be offering him a pre-contract right now to get him in the summer. Haidara is, I've seen bits and pieces of him, very young player. I think he'll probably be like a squad rotation option if were he to come. But looking at our midfield, we need options. There needs to be options. So that's one that I would have looked at as well, definitely. Zakaria, with the money that they are quoting as well, it's a no-brainer kind of deal. You just bring him in. And then, the big business happens in the summer, doesn't it? And it's all up in the air. There's so much that needs sorting. Depending on the departures, I'd probably be looking at the likes of a Frankie de Jong, which
Absolutely.
is very ambitious, but also we've got a lot of players leaving. If a Pogba leaves, Cavani, Martial are out the door, so our wage bill as well is going to reduce drastically. So I know Frankie is on big wages, but we know the trouble that Barcelona are in, and it would be the perfect time to capitalize, especially if you have a Ten Hag coming in, because he used Frankie de Jong and Donny in his midfield. And these are the kind of things we need to look at. We need to look at structurally how it's all going to plan out, and long-term planning is the key.
Yeah, we do need a playmaker in that deep role. Like, we do need a playmaker. We don't have that. We need somebody who can just link. Like I said earlier on, we don't have somebody that can link the defense and the attack. Like, effectively, we don't have that. And I absolutely adore Frankie de Jong. I actually say this as well, and I find it really funny, even though he used him at Ajax. If Ten Hag came in, I actually don't think he would use Donny. I think he would sign Gravenberch from Ajax. I don't think he would actually use Van de Beek. I think he'd use somebody that has a little bit more physicality to their presence in the midfield. I think that's why Gravenberch would actually suit him in the Premier League more than Van de Beek, even though Van de Beek is a midfielder that's worked well with him. Unless he decided to bin Fernandes and play Van de Beek as his 10, give him that control in the midfield, potentially. But I don't actually see happening. I actually think even though he's using before, I don't think he would in the Premier League. I honestly don't.
Yeah, that's the thing, Reece. I think if he were to use Donny, it would have to be in a midfield three. A Gravenberch or a de Jong would be on the left, and then Donny would be the floater who joins in on the attacks. And and on the right side, he likes a box-to-box midfielder as well. And then the thing is with him, there would have to be wholesale changes anyway, because of the way he likes to push up as a team. he likes defenders who are very comfortable on the ball. So much so, in fact, that the players he uses at centre-back are players who can play defensive midfield. So, that's something that we would have to address if he were to come in, because we don't really have that.
I think you might see youth get an opportunity, but the question is who? I think in the club's best interest, I think certain positions actually you could potentially give youth an opportunity. I think Alvaro Fernandez at left back, I think you could give Hannibal a chance as a number 10. You could realistically look at wing options like Shola, Shortire, like put Alanga back on the left wing. There's options there. There was stuff today, obviously, tweeting about like United Journal and United District talking about like Chris Wheeler and all that, saying that there's discontent with Marcus Rashford, even though there's going to be a new contract offered to him. Like there seems to be issues there where he's doing 12-hour shifts on the training ground trying to improve as a player. Like he's trying to show ambition. He's trying to show he can become a better player. But like all this, like I was about to say disrespect. That's not what it is. All due respect to Rashford, 12 hours is a bit much if you're trying to improve as a player, like on the pitch. You shouldn't have to go 12 hours gung-ho on the training ground. It should be like 2, 3, 4 hours a day. Don't overstress yourself, because you're actually going to make yourself worse than what you were before. And it's actually reflecting his form at the minute. I think realistically, you need to improve in depth positions there, and he needs to realistically get back to his position of being a top footballer. Otherwise, he's going to fade. I think that just shows where there's fundamental issues at the club where top players they're not going to get back to their best unless you unless you play them in the proper positions. He's one of them. And I do think our midfield must be overhauled in the summer. If we don't overhaul that midfield in the summer, the new manager is going to fail instantly.
There's a question here from Stephen. For the panel, do you think Rangnick can get these players to at least make top 4 over Conte's Spurs, Arteta's Arsenal, and even West Ham? What do you think, Brush?
It's looking very difficult at the moment, isn't it? Obviously, when you look at our squad on paper, they have the quality to do it. Will they do it is a different story entirely, especially the way it's looking at the moment, where it is very disjointed. It'll be interesting to see the approach he takes in the next couple of games, if he tries to continue with his style and what he had in mind, or if he just gives up on that and goes back to counter-attacking to try and get results. So I'm just keeping a keen eye on it. Fixture-wise as well, from now until like Feb, on paper, it's all winnable games. But, we have to see how it goes.
It's always the winnable games where the ones what we struggle with the most. Because when you do look at even under Ole, Jose Mourinho, Louis van Gaal, we struggled more against the Burnleys. We struggled more against the Brightons than we did against the Manchester Cities, against the Arsenals. So it is definitely something what we need to look upon. We need to make sure we do try to at least win these games, because when I was looking under Rangnick, you could tell these players haven't got the mentality on them anymore. Like, they're literally coming onto the pitch with their head down, like they've already lost the game. When you've got that mentality, you're not going to win a game at all.
The Newcastle game, Maisy. The Newcastle game, they look so disjointed, and you could tell that there's clearly some divide and disharmony in that dressing room. They just look like players that don't get along, and they're clearly showing it. And definitely. I know in the past I remember Sheringham and Cole weren't on talking terms, but the way they played together, it was still professional. You would never tell that they had issues if you saw them, the way they actually kept it professional on the field. These guys are incapable of doing that.
I agree. I'm going to show everyone the Premier League table as it stands. We're currently in 7th place. We had 19 games just because we've got 2 games in hand at the moment compared to the Manchester City and the Chelsea. So we are currently on 31 points with 9 wins, 4 draws and 6 losses. When you look at them losses, there was them games what we lost, for instance, the Aston Villa, the Wolves the other day. Them 2 games in particular shouldn't have been a game what we should have lost. Them draws like against Newcastle, Everton, what we shouldn't have lost either. At the moment, it's literally, It's literally only half of our games so far which we've actually won, which is extremely worrying. And at the moment too, we're 22 points behind top spot, and that is extremely worrying. When you look at that table, Reece, are you worried about top 4, even top 6?
I would be lying if I said I was not worried. I would be lying. And the reason why is I look at the teams above us, and the one thing they have is consistency. And I rip the piss out of Arsenal every week because they're still rivals. I love it, but Arteta cannot manage 2 games a week. He's very good at managing 1 game a week. Now that Arsenal fans aren't going to like this, but obviously they're now out of the FA Cup. There's less games for them to focus on. But it means they've lost out on a trophy. They could still win the Carabao Cup, but Arteta cannot manage 2 games a week. If he gets his team fully up for 1 game a week, and it's a league game, that's big trouble for us because they can just keep going and going and going. Antonio Conte, when he was at Chelsea, he had no European football. The FA Cup, Carabao Cup, they weren't particularly great. 1 game a week, they were fantastic. If you can focus solely on one opponent in training, you're going to actually have a better opportunity. West Ham, fairly consistent. It's just, for me, they are lacking in certain positions. I think they're lacking a backup 9, a backup number 10. Maybe it's centre-back. If they improved on those positions in this January transfer window, they could be an even bigger problem. I think if you're going to have to say favourites, I think we could make it, but we're not favourites. I think favourites for the top 4, I think, is Tottenham, purely because of Antonio Conte. He's experienced, he's a winner, he's driven. I would put us maybe just behind Arsenal, purely because Arsenal are actually at the moment playing better football, whereas our players really don't. They just don't give a shit. I think if they want to get top 4, they could put results together. They could turn up and win. We could win the FA Cup if they bother. You could win the Champions League if they bother. I don't see it in this team, whereas I do in Arsenal. I do it in Tottenham. West Ham, it really does depend on them because they've still got the Europa League as well. It's going to impact them. But all I'm going to say is this is January. That's in May. There's still 4 and a bit months to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the best thing you can ask is wait and see. If we lose 3 or 4 games in a row, which might happen, I think you could rule us out. But at the moment, we still have a chance, but it really does depend. And I do think we do need to strengthen in midfield in January. Otherwise, you can rule us out now. That's the only thing I can say, really. But I think if you really had to put your money on it, it's Tottenham.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Brush? When you look at this table, do you think we've still got a chance of European football, or do you actually think maybe the FA Cup could be potentially our best chance of European football now?
It's quite disheartening, isn't it, when you look at that table? Yeah, with Tottenham, I think it's the Conte factor which gives them the edge. You can see it now because they have not got a great team, and you can start to see the structure he's putting in place now. With Arsenal, like Reece said, with 1 less competition to focus on as well, they're going to be in the running. Until it's mathematically impossible, I'm always going to believe that we can do it. But, we're going to have to just wait and see. We need to get some kind of momentum going. Like, at the moment, we don't know what's going to happen week to week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree, to be honest. And when people have been saying as well that the best option for us is to be like Arsenal of this season, not being any European trophies whatsoever, and then just fully concentrate on the league. When you do look at that, though, you do question, well, if you do go out of Europe full stop, are we going to attract the same players? Are we going to even win the league the following season if we came out of Europe? What do you think about that, Brush? Do you think we should be like an Arsenal next season?
So for me, the thing is, I understand the financial incentive for being in the Champions League, but my thing has always been, why do you want to get there if you're not got a realistic chance of winning it. You know, I don't want to finish fourth just for the sake of finishing fourth. Obviously, it's a platform to build on. So I think we need a complete reset and need to get all the things right so that when we are in Europe, we actually genuinely have a chance of competing. I don't want to just be there to make up the numbers. So
yeah,
that's what it is.
I completely agree. I completely agree, especially when you are in a cup competition. You want to be in that cup because you know you've got one of the best chances of being a winner there. Because you look at like the Carabao Cup, you think, yes, we should have one of the strongest chances in there. You look at the FA Cup for the exact same reason. But I look at the Champions League and I don't see that at all. I just think semi-finals at best, maybe.
Even then, we're sort of clutching at straws, aren't we, Maze? I mean, realistically, you know, Champions League, I'm looking at probably the other three English clubs, Bayern Munich, Man City, and probably Real Madrid, as, you know, all teams that are ahead of us as favourites for that competition.
I even question Ajax could be a potential favourites as well, knowing how well they've been in terms of football, the way they built the team up all over again. Even they have got such a strong chance of winning the Champions League. I want to touch on another thing, which is contract extensions. There's one what's come about recently. Paul Pogba, 500k a week to stay at the club. What do you think about that one, Reece? I think his face says it all.
I think the problem with this one is the minute you talk about Paul Pogba, the fan base batters you. Like realistically, like, Pogba, I've seen all that. Like, they just batter you for the get-go, and it really does say to me that much of an issue. Like, that is actually funny. Like, mind you, I batter nipping on streams all the time. It's comedy. I can't wait to see him in a Man United shirt if they lost a bet to me. But I'm like, in honest to God, like, see, when it comes to Pogba, when people labelled Pogba a virus 2 years ago, for me that was wrong. He's not a virus, but he's not actually contributing enough to us actually winning the major trophies, and his injury problems are a major concern. My thing is, though, are you keeping Pogba because of the fact that he's a global superstar and it's all about making money off him? Or do you actually want to keep him because you know he's still a good footballer? Is he actually going to win? Is he actually going to take you to a league title? I don't know. Like, the way he plays football, like, he likes to have full control of the ball, time on the ball. All due respect to Paul Pogba, he's not David Silva. David Silva is the only player in the Premier League for me that I've ever seen who's had that amount of time on the ball and never got dispossessed. So calm and composed on the ball. And he had that time where he could dictate a game. I look at Pogba and he could only do it in Serie A because it was so suited to him. A man of his height, physical presence, agility, confidence on the ball, taking the ball forward, whether it be in a deep position or as a number 10 in his last season. I just look at him now in this team and I don't know if he's going to get it. If we do that, you have to give him that position now. And you have to tell him, right, this is where we want to play and we actually want you to play in this position. We want you to be consistent. Is it going to be, though? I honestly don't, and it's 500k a week. The only good thing about the whole 500k week about it is, the only good thing is you're actually putting pressure on the board to actually give him these wages, pressure on the owners. Because you saw in the owners' the owners are about spending money. It's not something they actually want to do unless you pressure them. That's big pressure to give a player 500 grand a week. Will they do it? I don't know. And I think the question is, do you want Pogba to stay, or do you want to build a team that's actually going to go and win things? That's actually going to be consistent. I don't know if Pogba's the answer, but He's still a world-class midfielder. He gets into any team in the world, but that for me realistically is the difference. I love Pogba, but I love Man United more. That's the difference.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, with that 500k a week, you could get easily 2 brilliant midfielders with that amount of wages.
Yeah.
You could easily 2 brilliant midfielders if that was 2 Premier League ones, or 1 Premier League, 1 abroad, or 2 abroad ones. You could still get. I'm not going to say they're on the same level as Paul Pogba, because Paul Pogba in his day, he's such a brilliant midfielder. But you look at Paul Pogba's injury record. His injury record doesn't match for the kind of player he is. You want a player who is going to be playing the majority of the games. And you look at the games, I feel like he's been injured more than what he's played. I've barely seen anything of Paul Pogba in these past 5 years. And the only thing I can really say about Paul Pogba, he got 4 assists for Leeds. He's won a Europa League and he's won a Carabao Cup. And apart from that, I can't even really name much more about Paul Pogba, what he's done in the past 5 years, to be fairly honest. And that's why I couldn't give him 500k a week.
Stop City taking the league of us at the stadium, but that's it. Like, it's... The thing is, though, is the worst ever comment you can say about a footballer is on their day. Because that's, like, once in how many games. It's all about consistency.
Exactly.
You need to be consistent. And I think this team doesn't have a midfielder who is consistently performing week in, week out. And I think that's where we really need to look at this team. Is we really need to get players that are actually going to come in and be consistent week in and week out. Like a Bellingham. Like, he would come in because he is so driven, so hungry, he wants to play top level football. We lost him. We lost the opportunity, but I don't think we've lost him completely. I think we will sign him next year. I actually think we will. I look at, if we were to get in a Haidara, 23 years old, he would come in. He would be consistent because he's driven and hungry to play. Kessie would come in. Doesn't matter if you play him. Right now he's been used as a number 10. He's actually scoring goals week after week consistently. You can use him in a defensive position. Consistent. You really need to get your spine in your club in order, and that's for me is like it's all about players are going to be consistent, and it's not just Paul Pogba. I am not going to put all the consistency on him. Bruno Fernandes hasn't been consistent for a while. Ronaldo, fairly consistent in the Champions League. That's where he's been more consistent. Rashford hasn't been consistent for nearly a year. Sancho's yet to be consistent, but he has time on his side. Other than that, is anybody else? No. So you can't just really I wouldn't just put all the blame on him, but the big wage concern is if you're going to give him 500 grand a week, then that's just going to set precedents of other players who are thinking, I can get the wages now. I can get that. And we've already seen what happened when Sanchez got the big money. It made a big impact on the team.
This is why we're in the position we're in now with David De Gea on 350 a week, which is actually ridiculous for a goalkeeper.
Yeah, I love De Gea, but he shouldn't be on those wages. It should be more about building a proper team that's wanting to challenge to win.
Yeah, I think 500 for Pogba is absolute madness. Like Maisy said, obviously you're not going to get a like-for-like replacement because I do think he's a quality player. But with those kind of funds, you can distribute it amongst several players that come in and improve the team as a whole. And that's the kind of thing we should be striving for. I would really like us to address the wage issue at our club as well. And this would just add to it. You know, even with De Gea, how do you solve that problem? You know, I think the only thing to do is wait till you run that contract down. And then you either offer him
Dean Henderson over 100k a week.
150 grand to sit on the bench. It makes absolutely no sense. Send him out on loan, sell him with an option to buy back or something. Like, this isn't helping anyone. Him just sat there.
Tony has got a good question here. Is Van der Beek going to be sold? What's the situation for him? Asking for a friend. Not heard anything about Donny leaving at all. From what I've heard, Man United isn't even open to put him in loan, not open for selling him. Have you heard anything about Donny Brush, and would you think the best option is for him to move on now?
I mean, yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because obviously we're not using him nowhere near as much as we should. We've not given him a sniff of anything, and then the reluctance to loan him as well. I don't understand it at all, to be fair. I really don't, especially in this team as well. Like, I don't see why he isn't getting the chances. It's not like anyone else is pulling up trees. Yeah, I know. On the last day of on deadline day in the summer, I think Everton were in for him, but Ollie intervened to deny that move, which gave everyone a glimmer of hope that we would see more of him this season, and it's just not happened.
The situation with Donny is so strange because we've had 3 managers now. We've had Ole, he didn't use Donny. Michael Carrick used Donny for 1 game, which was the Villarreal game. And Ralph has only used Donny once, and that was when we played the kids against Young Boys. What do you think the situation is right now? Do you think there's a particular reason why he's not being played, Brush?
I think Ralph probably sees him as more as a 10. So maybe the only thing I can think of is he's not comfortable bringing him into that 2 in the middle. I don't understand why though, because of who's in front of him. But yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. It is a bit concerning when consecutive managers come in and they all refuse to use him. It makes me think, right, is there something we're not seeing? This can't be coincidence. The guy's been there for a year and a half, and he's just sat on the bench. And we're picking out little moments. Like, I was quite impressed with him when he came on against Watford in an otherwise disgustingly terrible game, and I thought, right, well, in that 20-minute spell, he did fantastically well. Why are we not building on that? And he just disappeared again.
I completely agree, and I actually think at the moment Donny is a much more suited to be a substitute right now than he is as a starting 11 player. Because when I've seen him as a starting 11 player, I look at him and think he isn't a starting 11 player. But when I see him as a sub, I think, oh wow, Donny's played brilliant as a substitute. Let's put him as the starting 11 again. But then I think we need to give that a little bit of a balance because we can't play him just for 3 minutes. Under the same breath, I just don't think he is fit to be a starting 11 player neither right now. So even right now, for me, I do think it's such a difficult situation. And I think Ralph handled it brilliantly, putting him on that 70th minute for the FA Cup, giving him that couple of minutes, because you can't just expect someone to run into that starting 11 team, play 10 games in a row when he's had 0 game time for about 4 months. You literally can't do that. He's going to sustain injuries. He's going to pick up knocks along the way. He's going to get fatigue. You can't do that. But Red Devil Studio has got such a good question here. What area of the team is consistent apart from the goalkeeper? My answer is no part of the team is consistent apart from the goalkeeper. What about you, Reece? Do you agree with that?
I think apart from the goalkeeper, what area of the team is consistent? The United admin on Twitter. I'd say the under 23s, or fair recently, I'd say the women's team is more consistent than the men's team. Yeah. I would say the most consistent thing about Manchester United is the disgusting owners. Year on year out, just fucking things up. But yeah, De Gea's the only consistent member of the team, only consistent member, and the Twitter admin is like on world class level at the minute with the tweets he's putting, like the tweets are putting out, because it's, if you look at the constant replies, it's always abject replies of anger from the fans because of how far we have fallen, and it says it all really.
And that Twitter page, it just shows the disconnect between the fans and those running the show. It's ridiculous. I had to reply to one today, the Ronaldo one, where I think they asked the question, "Oh, is it just me that does the suit 100 times a day or something?" And I was like, "What?"
Like
I read that.
Like, that's just,
I was like, "What?"
Like,
I liked your reply. I thought it was hilarious what you said back.
Like, you can get away with those. You can get away with those tweets if there's a feel-good factor around the squad. If there's if we're winning games and we're playing very good football. But at the moment, we're not. That's actually, in my opinion, a tongue-in-cheek tweet. It's actually going to piss people off. I didn't see the tweet back, and guarantee the fan base response was all just pure hate or spewed.
Yeah,
few
probably. I
comments.
mean, yeah, even I had to comment to that. I thought it was utterly ridiculous. It's just so out of touch with what's happening at the moment. But it also shows how much they're involved in just the PR and marketing side of things. And that's what they care about. Even when Richard Arnold was coming in, they've rolled out the marketing for that, because straight away I saw Peter Schmeichel speaking on it. I saw Robbo speaking on it, and these little cosigns, it's to get us on side, is what it is.
The one thing that's like, if you've watched the Robbo documentary, is how Richard Arnold, funnily enough, is actually in that documentary. He actually talks about Robson as a player, how he hasn't relinquished his captain's role because how he is as a global ambassador. There's a very good relationship there. I actually think Richard Arnold is actually, in terms of what he said, if he actually does hold up to his word of he's going to delegate sporting control to the sporting side, not himself, because he doesn't really understand football, he's done better than Ed Woodward in 5 minutes, and he's not even in the job yet, than Woodward's done in 8 years. So for me, that says it all. And he holds him in high regard, and Robbo spoke highly of him. I actually think Richard Arnold could be the start of good things to come. But then again, I say that loosely because the mentality of the club for the past 8 years is trying to go away from what we knew to try and stay ahead of our rivals, when realistically we should have just kept going as we were, but just year on year, just keep promoting young players, add to the squad when necessary, don't force errors on the club and the playing staff than what they've already done, and that's where we've went wrong. And I think now we've realised we need to get back to where we were by not making too many mistakes. But there's going to be mistakes along the way. But the biggest mistake is not having a sporting director, and it took the club 8 years to do that, 7-8 years, which is embarrassing. And that's the real concern. Is I think Arnold will delegate the control, but it's how much control. That's my fear, and I fear that the Glazers are still going to have the overseeing control, where they're still a toxic, parasitic bunch of, I could say the word I really want to say, but I'm not getting this show cancelled. But they're another issue, and if they really want the next manager to succeed, they really have to back him. They've said for years they're a Pochettino fan. If they get Pochettino in, they don't back him. That tells a lot to me as well. That says a lot for me if they get Pochettino in as well. There's such a fan of his. Yeah, you can be a fan of the guy, but you need to back him properly. Are they going to do it? Highly doubt it, based on their track record.
I'm going to go with the last couple of questions before I wrap up. To Vincent's question, what I would like to see Ronaldo do different. The thing is, Ronaldo can score one game and then he'd be crap for the next couple of games, so I want consistency off Ronaldo. I can't just say Ronaldo is been brilliant because he's the best player in the world, but he's still having his off games. So if he's going to score in one game, he needs to be consistent in the next so many games as well. It doesn't matter about his celebration. It's just about him being consistent for the next so many games. We can't just pinpoint certain players, but he's also been inconsistent just like everybody else. And for Niall's question for everybody, if Rangnick was to go to the consultancy role, who would be your manager? I personally go for Ten Hag. I really like Ten Hag as a manager. His attacking kind of play, the way he promotes the youth. I think he would be very successful at Manchester United. But the question is, would you want to come to Manchester United knowing how toxic it is right now, knowing the kind of board we have at the moment? As a manager at Ten Hag, and he's had Van der Sar as like a director of football, you're gonna want to get backed by the board, and that will probably raise alarm bells for him. Brush, what manager would you have?
Ten Hag is someone that I've looked at, and he seems the obvious choice. But like you say, Mays, it's not just about getting the manager in. We need to fix the structure at this club. If we were to get a Ten Hag, I would have loved it if Edwin came with him. And Edwin was the one in the executive role. I know they've got Mark Overmars as director. These things matter. It's not just about the manager, especially when you're coming into this structure which is an absolute shambles at our club. Would Ten Hag even want to come into that? And what level of control would he have? These are the things. Whoever comes in, they need to have the freedom to, do the things that they want.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. And this is the problem, what Manchester United has done. Yes, it was good that you had brought in Ralph as an interim manager from the end of the season. But now, when it gets to the summer, it's just going to be like the Manchester United women's team all over again. We're not going to know what's going on with the future. We've got contracts, what's going to be run up. How many people are going to leave because there's no manager? How long is it going to take to bring a manager in? What manager are we going to attract? And this is
Maisy,
what my concern is.
This is the other thing, mate. Ralph is a consultant. So, just because he's going to give them advice doesn't mean they're necessarily going to take it on board. So this is the other thing with Ralph. I would like more clarity on exactly what his role would be.
Exactly. It'd be good to know what kind of what is a consultancy role at Manchester United. How much voice do they have in this board? How much voice do they have for the youth? How much voice do they have in these transfers?
Exactly.
Who's he consulting?
See,
is he consulting the Glazers? Is he consulting the manager? Who is he consulting?
Exactly. If Richard Arnold come out and said, "Listen, I'm going to concentrate on the marketing and sponsorship side of things," then go and officially give Ralph the footballing side of things, the responsibility for that, and make an actual position. Tell us where we're going.
I agree.
Just saying, there's an issue in this. There's an issue in the stadium apparently.
What's going on?
There's apparently somebody down at the Spurs stadium, like
Someone's
inside
down?
Yeah,
a player or
no fan.
Oh no!
Oh wow!
I'm not entirely sure, but the only reason I had to go on mute is because I got a phone call, which is not like me anyway. Yeah.
I hope everything is all going fine at the Tottenham ground, and I do wish that fan all the best, and it isn't nothing too serious. Before we wrap up, Reece, Niall had a question of what would your manager be? Who would you have at the end of the season as a manager?
For me, it's not nipping. Well, I wouldn't really tell unless something's went crazy on that stream at the stadium. They're just saying it's potentially there's just something's gone on inside, like out with the players. It's definitely in the stadium. I do think Vaughan is right. I think it's Pochettino, but for me, I would do absolutely everything to get Enrique out the Spain job. I would, without any doubt, I would do absolutely everything to get Luis Enrique out of the Spain job. I think in terms of elite level coaching, driven, focused, plays exciting football, but it's tailor suited to any league in the game. For me, it's Luis Enrique's style of football. I mean, there's so many managers in world football I absolutely admire. I love Nagelsmann, which fits as well, but you're not going to get him out of Bayern Munich.
Especially because they paid 25 million to get him out of his Leipzig contract. And he's so young.
Exactly. You're not. I don't know if you're going to get Ten Hag. I honestly don't know if Ten Hag will come to us. I think he may end up going to Man City. Continuity makes more sense. I don't think. I don't know what's going to happen with Pochettino if he gets the job, because, like I said 5 minutes ago, the Glazers love the guy. Ed Woodward loves him, even though he's going. They've been admiring him for years. He seems to be the right fit, but a manager can be the right fit in your eyes, but you're actually going to back him the whole way. And their track record is, they will spend, but they don't spend properly. And he wants control. If he got the job, he'd want control of who he would bring in. I don't see it. the one thing for me is I don't care who comes in. For me, it's about you have to properly back him. You have to clear out the players he doesn't want. For example, if he comes in and says, I don't want Pogba, I don't want Fernandes, I don't want Ronaldo, even if he went as far as saying, I don't want Rashford, and he says it purely because they don't fit, whether it's a market, whether for marketing reasons, whether it be like if it fits the club because of PR, that they refuse to do it, you've got to back the manager. In that sense, you've got to give them full control over that. So for me, it's not about who comes in, it's you back the fucker completely. But
Agreed.
I think Vaughn's spot on, realistically, about the love affair with Pochettino. Like, it'd be a good way to eventually shut it up. But if he comes in, he could potentially do a good job. I think it's going to be either Pochettino or Ten Hag, either way. But I think realistically, it will be Pochettino. It's not a bad choice. But for me, I don't personally care. I just want it to be the right. I just want to make sure it's the right fit, and they properly back him, and they don't give up on him after like a year, 2 years because of player power and marketing and the PR bollocks that's constantly flooding from the club. So you can have a personal preference, but for me, it's just about getting it right overall. I don't really care who comes in, just get it right.
It all comes down to the structure, though, doesn't it, Reece? And like you touched on there, you remember when Jose wanted to sell Martial and they blocked it?
Yeah.
And then you mentioned Rashford there. I can't see Rashford going anywhere.
I don't see him going anywhere, but I just if I'd use as an example.
Yeah. I'm saying though, but as an example with Rashi, the PR and everything else, that's what they'll look at. Like on-field performances, he's not been up to par, but because of that, the fact that he's an academy product, all the good stuff he's doing off the field as well, it all builds into that brand, and that's something that Manchester United currently will not want to let go of. But these are the things that we need to address, though, because it needs to get back to being about what happens on the pitch and footballing decisions. But, that often gets overlooked at our club for all the other things. Yeah,
I agree. For me, it's all about getting this right. And
with Poch, I'm not going to lie. I'm very intrigued to see how he does this season. I do have one or two question marks around him, and even the fact that he doesn't get on well with that board and he's got egos to manage. I want to know how he does in that situation.
Yeah,
I completely agree. What we're going to do, we're going to end the stream now. Thank you for everybody who's watched the stream. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I am on the road to 500 subscribers. I just want to say a big thank you to Brush. Thank you for coming back onto the channel again. Absolutely love hearing your views. And everybody does love you in the live chat as well. So thank you so much, Brush, for coming on.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Maisy.
Thank you as well to Reece for coming back onto the channel. Love having you on the channel as well. One of my regulars from the beginning. So thank you so much for coming on as well, Reece. Do you want to shout out your socials, Brush?
Yeah, you can hit me up on Twitter at Brushy87, all capitals. I'm also on Instagram now at Brushy_87.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, because last time I had you didn't have any socials.
Yeah, no.
When you was last on the stream.
You know what? Even with the Instagram thing, it happened only the other week, and it happened because I entered a competition on the United View, and I was one of 3 winners, and they were like, so to claim your prize, you need to go onto Instagram, and I was like, I don't have one of those. So that forced me to set one up.
Enjoying it?
It's all right. I'm not really on there much, to be fair.
That's fair enough. I don't really use mine either, to be honest. So, Reece, where can we find you?
Somewhere, anywhere, happy days, like wherever you want to be. I'm barely on social media at the moment, to be honest. Like, I'm just I'm just disconnect with it. But you can find me here at Devil's Rising and on Twitter. I still engage with people in terms of like general conversation, football, whatever. Weekly Armchair on YouTube, like Doug's channel on a Monday back there. I'm just finding my feet again. I've not been I've been dealing with personal stuff at the minute, so I'm not in the right mental shape at the minute. But being back on streams the past couple of days at least given me a distraction, so that's been good for me. But then again, my personal business, I am not gonna divulge it. That's not for anyone else to discuss. Also, it's not because I don't want to talk about it. It's just I don't want to put my problems on anybody else. I'd rather just talk football. But yeah, Devil's Rising on Twitter. Weekly Armchairs, where you can mainly find me on YouTube. I think I'm on Rich's channel tonight. If I've said I'm around if he wants me, but I'm still going to be in the live chat anyway. But that's pretty much it. And cheers, Vaughn.
For everybody's socials, Reese's and Brushes, I put in the description below. I've also put Reese's Twitch on there and his YouTube because he does some FIFA stuff on there. So
yeah, I'm back on Twitch tomorrow. I was going to be on there last week, but I just could not find the energy. I just didn't have it. But I'll be on there tomorrow. So
brilliant. Yeah, so you can catch Reese through there. And with myself, I'm back live tomorrow. Reese will be back again tomorrow because he's doing the quiz.
Am I?
Yes, you remember? I've got the messages.
Oh, wait, hold on. No, wait. Sorry. Yeah, never mind. Yeah, I don't remember.
Quiz at 6 o'clock. Doug is currently in first place with 10 out of 30. So is Reese going to get
10 out of 30, eh?
Oh, it's well tough. I caught the one with Luca. Some of those questions, jeez.
You haven't even told me what your quiz is about. Wait, that's the pure entertainment.
I told you it's a Premier League quiz. It's a Premier League quiz. But the topics, it's going to be picked out of random.
Random? You should probably ask me about fucking Swindon Town in their first Premier League season then.
Don't worry though. You'll do fine. Don't worry.
I'm looking forward. The fact that you alluded to gentle. I'm not bothered. Realistically, like about a quiz in terms of difficult or easy. Like I love a quiz. I put all the energy into it, so I will be up for it. Don't you worry. I'll be up for it. Cheers, Niall. And no, we do not need Swindon questions. Unless it's asking what colour strip they were.
Topics you've got. We'll find out.
I'm up for it anyway. Tomorrow. I can't wait. So thanks for asking me to take part. I'm honestly looking up for it. So I'll be proper up for it. And 10's the target. All right, I'll see if I can raise the bar.
We'll have to see. And then on Friday, I'll be going live as well. It'll be a preview for the Manchester United women's game versus Birmingham. And then I'll be going live twice on Sunday. I'll be going my usual weekly transfer show. That'll be with John Sinclair from Newcastle shows. And I'll be also doing my other quiz show with Niall Kane, who's in the chat. So you can catch me in here all week. Basically doing streams all week this week. But you can catch me through there. And I'll see you all very, very soon. Goodbye for now.
Ciao.
Take care.